Hello and welcome to Sports Fan Entertainment, here to discuss Tennessee Titans running back Derrick Henry ahead of what might very well be his last game as a Tennessee Titan. I considered doing a whole Titans-Jags preview. To be honest, guys, who cares? We could go down the matchups and all of that. For us, the season is over. For the Jags, it's a much bigger deal, but this is the story of the game for me and a lot of people. So let's just discuss Derrick Henry in length, whether or not I believe this is his last game for Tennessee, whether or not it should be, and what the future holds as we progress into off-season content now for the Tennessee Titans, as they are definitively dead in the water. So yes, Tennessee Titans great Derrick Henry, who, by the way, turned 30 years old officially yesterday. Can't believe he's only like 3 years older than me. I felt like he was more than that. But yeah, only 3 years older than me, and really like 2.5. Really like like 2.5. So, as someone that is 27, 30 isn't that old practically as a human being. But as a running back, that is certainly when you begin to get up there in age, especially when you also consider how many carries Derrick Henry has had over the years. Now, also, though, when it is important to note that, he didn't play much his rookie year, and even his sophomore year, he wasn't a starting running back yet entirely until, it was early in the season where he was like, okay, yeah, he's now the starting running back. He's going to get the bulk of the carries, but DeMarco Murray was still getting some share then. And then after that, he was off to the races. He's become the beast, the king, Derrick Henry, as we know it, nearing 10,000 yards. In fact, as of right now, let me check the number he has in his career. 9,349 rushing yards, all for the Titans, and 89 touchdowns. So 11 rushing touchdowns to go before he reaches 100 touchdowns, and about 650 yards to go before he reaches 10,000 yards. And I'm expecting in this last game against the Jags for him to get at least 50 yards. So he'll be at a nice probably 600 yards. Needed more for him to break 10,000. Now, I don't want to be too sentimental here. We got to be objective, and we got to think about what's best for the team. I would love for Derrick Henry to break both of those timelines with this team. Given one more year, I absolutely believe he'd break the 10,000-yard mark when it comes to rushing. I do not believe he'd get probably 11, maybe 10 if he gets a touchdown in the next game, maybe 9 if he gets 2. I don't think he's getting 9, 10, or 11 touchdowns next year. I just don't see it. He had 11 this year, and that's even a surprise, considering how bad our offense was, but we still had to rely upon him to get double-digit rushing touchdowns. By the way, even despite getting injured in 2021, this is now his 6th straight season doing so. He's the greatest running back of this generation. Period. I know Christian McCaffrey is also great, but he just gets injured too much. And then now he's finally realizing his potential more consistently, and then before you know it, he's going to be old. So Derrick Henry is the greatest running back of this generation, which is why, if you look at it objectively, so even if you look at Pro Football Reference, they have this great tool that's called their Hall of Fame Monitor. And you can compare running backs that have already made the Hall of Fame to Derrick Henry stats. In terms of also not only just stats, but like playoff appearances, voting for Pro Bowls and all that. He doesn't quite yet have a Hall of Fame resume. I know that's shocking, but almost every single running back to make the Hall of Fame now, yeah, you have over 10,000 yards. Yeah, you probably have over 100 rushing touchdowns, and you probably have had more of a playoff impact than Henry. And that's not to say, it's not an impact, because, he literally carried us through the playoff run in 2019 NFL season. He won us both of those playoff games and the defense. But it certainly wasn't the quarterback, Ryan Tannehill. It was Derrick Henry carrying the damn offense. And for him to be a legitimate MVP candidate, breaking over 2,000 yards, in 2020 as well, he's been incredible. So from that standpoint, I would love to have him back. But from a practical standpoint, does it make sense? So I felt early in this year, I'd be like, I want him back. And I felt that for 2 reasons. One, he was still playing pretty well. In fact, we only lost week 1 because of Tannehill, and then Henry started putting on a little bit. And he and Tyjae Spears, they have a nice duality. You have your receiving back, your shiftier back, your smaller back in Tyjae Spears, and then you have your big behemoth, 6'3", 250-pound Derrick Henry. That's a nice duality. That's a nice 1-2 punch. You kind of can't even dream of better than that in terms of if you want one type versus another type. That's the type of duo that you like. So I liked it. But as we've waned into the season and as we've entered the Will Levis era, the less and less it makes sense, and the less and less he's effective it's become. I think he really does need to, in primarily being like a play action type offense. We were on the right hand, and we try to be in Will Levis, but the protection has been so awful it doesn't even matter. But I just think at this point, next season, he already broke 1,000 yards this year. So he's going to play one more game. It's going to be 1,060, 70, 80, maybe 1,100 yards. Good. I mean, for you to still break 1,000 yards, it's good. Next year, it's going to be like 700, 800, and Tyler's going to get more snaps. So, I mean, I feel like that's a fair estimate. It could be less. I think that's a fair estimate. But I don't want to bring Derrick Henry back for that. You know, I feel like for that, he might as well just go elsewhere and find whatever role he can find. I actually think he could still be somewhat of a bell cow. Now, it wouldn't be a traditional bell cow like what he's been for us, but he could play a Kenneth Walker role somewhere. Like if someone running back position, like for example, the Ravens this year when they were suffering all the injuries, if they would have given him, 20 carries a game, I think he could do very well, especially if you give him good blocking, especially if he's with a talented team, with a talented quarterback. I think he could still be very effective. This year, he dipped under 4 yards a carry. That's mostly due to our offensive line. You look at his Pro Football Focus rating, he's ranked third. I think that's his highest ranking ever, if not maybe his second highest ever for this year. Third highest rated running back, Derrick Henry. And he's caught the ball better this year than we've ever seen. He's had some athletic catches. And he's a gym rat. He's going to be in the gym. He's going to continue to do his thing. So I still think he has at least one more strong year in him. But considering the role that we want Tyjae Spears, or at least the increased role we want him to have, it just doesn't make sense. Because I'm not as high on Tyjae as a lot of people. I think he's good. I think he will be good. And I bet, what they say to running backs now, I mean, what the hell does that mean? Because Kyron Williams, who I like, he's second in the league in rushing, and third is James Cook. And the Bills don't run the ball. They don't run the ball enough. And James Cook is third in rushing. James Cook, he's had like 2 or 3 really good games. Other games, he's completely invisible. So if you're telling me James Cook is the third best running back, no, he's not. But, he's the third highest rushing yards. So could Tyjae Spears end up being like 1,000-yard rusher like James Cook? Sure. Is it going to be nearly as impactful as Derrick Henry? No. Does it have to be in this NFL? No. Isaiah Pacheco just won his Super Bowl. Who was it? The Rams running back, whoever. I mean, they just had an assortment of running backs whenever they won it. You don't need a strong running game right now to win the Super Bowl. So that's not really, important moving forward. I know that's been our model. We have the Derrick Henry era. We had the Chris Johnson era. And even though Steve McNair was just as good as Eddie George was, it was 50-50. It was a 50-50 between McNair and Eddie George in terms of carrying those offenses. So we've been running back dependent, but we're finally going to join the 21st century and rely on our quarterback to be the one to really lead on our offense. And maybe, I know this would be crazy, but maybe a wide receiver or two as well. Maybe even a tight end. Ooh, God forbid. Well, we've had good tight ends, but they're playing out wide receivers. Maybe 2. So it's just time, and I wish him well. It's one of those where I will be rooting for him. With the A.J. Brown thing, I actually was never rooting for him when he left. I wasn't hating on him either, though. I just didn't care. Like, whenever I see A.J. Brown on doing well, I'm just like, it'd be nice to have him, but I'm not rooting for him or against him. I'll be rooting for Derrick Henry. I actually legitimately like him. He's done a lot for this community. He's been a great part of this team, and he's a Titans legend. And I think he will eventually go on to make Hall of Fame. Even though, you can look at his stats compared to other Hall of Fame running backs that will not make the Hall of Fame. Fred Taylor, to me, he's not making the Hall of Fame. Fred Taylor has better numbers. If you look at Frank Gore, he will. But some would argue Frank Gore is not that impressive as his numbers would suggest, and maybe he shouldn't make it. Some other running backs that may not as well, Derrick Henry may not have as good numbers, but the fact that he's just clearly the most impactful running back of this generation, the most memorable running back of this generation, he'll make it. It's just unfortunate he never got like a Super Bowl or even a conference championship to help that resume, but I think he'll have one more good year in him. We'll see. I need to see what team he goes to, what other running backs are around him for me to say, is it going to be a 1,000-yard year? Is it going to be a 700-yard? Is it going to be a 400 or 500-yard? Is it going to be Marshawn Lynch with the Raiders? What type of role is it going to be? I don't know yet. But I do think it is time to move on. And then I'm not big on prioritizing running back. Now, you need another one. Don't just go in with Tyjae Spears and Julius Chestnut and who else are you going to drag in here? And Mekhi Bagent and say, we're good to go. No. Either find someone in rounds 4, 5, 6, or 7 that you like, and then let those 2 kids run around. Or just find a veteran back that's really cheap. Okay? And by the way, I think Derrick Henry is going to be pretty cheap. But it's going to be like at least $4 or $5 million. And you might as well just spend your money elsewhere because we need help. Like that for us. I mean, didn't we give Daniel Brunskill like $2 million to come in and start at guard? Yeah. I'd rather do that. I'd rather, and hell, even Azeez Al-Shire was signed for like $3 or $4 million to come in and be a starting inside linebacker. I'd rather just go get a starter somewhere else in another position and take a chance on someone else. Not that we're going to be up against the cap. We have $85 million against the cap. Yeah, but we just have to start figuring out what this running back position is going to look like because it can't continue to look like what it has looked like, especially under Mike Vrabel. I know he wants to continue to run the ball and all that. We need to figure out what this running back position is going to look like for the Tennessee Titans organization moving forward because we have no idea because we've had a model and we got to do something else now. So, Derrick Henry, I've loved your time here. We'll watch this last game and we'll enjoy it. I do think it's time to move on. I do think this is his last game, but hopefully it's one to enjoy. So what are your thoughts on this video? What are your thoughts on Derrick Henry? Is this indeed his last game for the Titans? Will you root for him for his next team? And what are your thoughts on the future? Comment down below. I want to know. I will be here Sunday to recap Titans and Jaguars, so make sure to come back for that. Until next time, this has been MJ of Sports Fan Entertainment, and I'm out. See you all later.